I'm going to say this once, and I mean it. Do not listen to this story while you're eating because there are some memories that don't fade politely. They don't shrink with time. They don't soften around the edges. They stay exactly as sharp as the moment they were created. And this story begins with one of those memories, a sound, a scream, not the kind you hear in movies where fear is exaggerated for effect, but the kind that comes from deep inside a human being when denial collapses. Instantly, and reality hits all at once, a scream that bounced off concrete walls inside my cellar. While a woman who believed she controlled an entire neighborhood learned, in the most intimate way possible, what skunks in mating season actually mean. Even now, long after the police reports were filed, the court dates passed, the neighborhood meetings rewritten, I still hear it sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, the pitch, the panic, the moment it shifted from anger to terror, because some sounds don't leave when the event ends. They move in with you. They sit in the back of your mind and remind you that power, when abused long enough, eventually meets something that doesn't care who you are. My name is Finn Carter. I'm a wildlife photographer and YouTuber, and my entire career has been built around one principle that most people claim to understand but rarely live by: observe nature without trying to dominate it. Because the moment you try to control living systems, whether animals or people, you expose how little you actually understand them, which is why I moved to Ashwood Glen, a quiet suburban neighborhood pressed right up against a protected wildlife reserve, a place advertised as peaceful, environmentally conscious, and community-driven, the kind of place where you expect bird calls in the morning and respectful nod from neighbors who mind their own business. I wasn't running away from anything dramatic. I wasn't chasing isolation. I was just tired in a very specific way, the kind of tired that comes from noise replacing meaning, from cities selling urgency as purpose, from realizing that silence isn't emptiness, it's oxygen. And after years of filming animals in remote environments and then returning to crowded streets and artificial light, the idea of living near a reserve felt like balance, like a way to let my work and my life stop fighting each other. What I did not account for was the HOA. More accurately, I did not account for Marjorie Caldwell, the president of the Ashwood Glen Community Association, a woman whose relationship with authority could only be described as obsessive, personal, and deeply emotional, because power for her wasn't a responsibility, it was an identity, and I met her less than 48 hours after moving in, when she appeared at my door without warning, clipboard tucked under her arm like an extra limb, eyes scanning past me into my living room. Before I could even finish saying hello, she didn't introduce herself like a normal human being. She introduced herself through rules, listing potential violations before any had even occurred: grass height, trash bin placement, exterior lighting angles, window glare, things so small they felt less like regulations and more like excuses. And when she proudly informed me that the HOA handbook was 73 pages long and that she personally enforced every line every single day, something in my gut tightened. Not fear, not anger, but recognition, because I had met this personality before, just usually behind different titles, different desks, different uniforms. I smiled, nodded, thanked her for the information, and told myself I could stay invisible because I wasn't loud, I didn't host parties, I didn't challenge authority, I just wanted to live quietly near nature and do my work. That illusion lasted 12 days. My neighbor, Mrs. Anjali Varma, an elderly woman with the kind of calm that only comes from watching people repeat the same mistake for decades, brought me homemade food my first week and quietly warned me to be careful, lowering her voice like she was talking about a storm system rather than a person, telling me Marjorie had already forced several families to sell their homes and leave, that fines were her favorite weapon, and that before becoming HOA president, she had been fired from a municipal job for manipulating environmental compliance reports, a detail that lodged itself in my mind because it felt far too specific to be irrelevant. Still, I thought I could keep my head down. Then the rain came. It was one of those nights where the sky opens up without warning, rain pounding the road so hard it turns headlights into mirrors. And as I drove home from filming, I saw a movement near the roadside, a family of skunks huddled together, one of them limping badly, clearly injured, and as someone licensed in wildlife handling and temporary rehabilitation, I did what I had done dozens of times before without incident. I carefully relocated them to my basement, a space already inspected, ventilated, legally approved, and designed for short-term wildlife care. What I failed to consider was timing. The skunks were entering mating season. Within 48 hours, the smell began to bloom, slow at first, then unmistakable, then impossible to ignore, the kind of smell that doesn't just exist in the air, it announces itself. And while I was managing it professionally, ventilation systems running, treatment protocols in place, someone else was watching. Marjorie noticed almost immediately. At first it was subtle, her car parked just a little too long near my house, her phone angled toward my basement windows when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Then came the violation notices, accusing me of harboring unauthorized wild animals, threatening fines, demanding immediate removal, and when I calmly responded with copies of my state permits, wildlife licenses, veterinary clearances, and inspection reports, she pivoted because people who don't care about being right always care, about staying in control. At the HOA meeting, she turned it into theater, projecting photos of my basement windows, speaking loudly about community safety and health risks, trying to turn neighbors against me through fear. And when I stood up alongside Dr. Elena Morris, a wildlife biologist who confirmed everything I was doing was legal, temporary, humane, and environmentally responsible, Marjorie smiled thinly, nodded, and announced she would grant me a 2-week grace period, a phrase that sounded cooperative but felt like a countdown. What she did not do was stop. She began circling my house at night, issuing violation notices that contradicted each other, accusing me of noise disturbances caused by animals she claimed didn't exist, sending documents designed to look like court summons, complete with formatting meant to intimidate. And when I installed security cameras, she escalated again, because documentation terrifies people who rely on intimidation to function. That's when Mrs. Varma told me the rest of the story. Marjorie wasn't just harassing residents for personal satisfaction. She was working with North Pine Development Group, intentionally pressuring homeowners until they sold a loss, clearing the way for future development near the reserve. And my property was particularly valuable because of its location. And as we spoke, one of my cameras captured Marjorie and her adult son Ethan Caldwell lurking near my cellar door late at night, inspecting the lock, whispering, planning. That footage changed everything. I stopped reacting emotionally and started preparing strategically, because people like Marjorie don't stop unless they're confronted with consequences they cannot bully away. Dr. Morris reviewed the footage, looked at me calmly, and said something that still echoes in my head. If she insists on entering, let her experience exactly what she's trying to control. I didn't interfere. I didn't warn her. I waited. 2 nights later, while I was out filming, Marjorie made her move. The camera footage later showed her forcing the cellar lock, creeping down the steps with her phone flashlight on, confidence radiating off her posture. And the moment she crossed the threshold, I activated the lights remotely, and the skunks, startled, frightened, and very much in mating season, reacted exactly the way nature designed them to. The spray was immediate, overwhelming, relentless, a biological defense system doing precisely what it evolved to do. And her scream cut through the neighborhood, high-pitched, panicked, echoing off concrete walls as she slipped, fell, mascara streaking down her face, clothes soaked in a scent so powerful it borders on legendary, trapped in a space no one could approach without gagging. She called the police herself. When officers arrived, they physically could not get close enough to help at first. And when they finally extracted her, she was arrested for trespassing, the video evidence irrefutable, the narrative flipped instantly. Her lawsuit against me collapsed before it ever gained traction. Neighbors avoided her because the smell never fully went away. Ethan refused to lie for her. Then James Porter, a former HOA treasurer, released emails proving Marjorie had received kickbacks for every for sale, and everything unraveled at once: resignations, investigations, subpoenas, silence from North Pine Development as authorities stepped in. Marjorie accepted a plea deal for fraud and conspiracy, receiving house arrest, massive restitution, and a lifetime ban from HOA governance and real estate. The skunks were released back into the wild. The HOA was rebuilt under Mrs. Varma. My channel grew, not because of revenge, but because people recognized truth when they saw it. And Marjorie sold her house and left Ashwood Glen, carrying with her a reputation no amount of distance could erase. So let me ask you this. If someone watched you, harassed you, and abused their power, would you stay quiet for comfort, or would you let them walk straight into their own consequences? And where do you draw the line between peace and surrender? If you've lived through something like this, share your story, and remember, the most dangerous species isn't wildlife, it's unchecked authority.